My name's Dave Dubeau, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave Dubeau. And have you ever wondered how one woman turned her financial expertise into a thriving real estate business, retiring at 36 to enjoy life with her family? Today, my guest, Jantzen Young, a successful land note investor, will share her secrets to building generational wealth through creative finance solutions. Jantzen, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Bryce. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll touch on the whole land note and the note side of things, but you must have started somewhere back in the day. What was the thing that got you thinking about real estate? What was the seed before you even bought a thing?
Absolutely. So my whole thing from the very beginning was passive income. I started in corporate. I worked with one of the third largest financial services institution in the US. I loved it. I was actually good at my job. I felt fulfilled. But when I was, on that management path, the closer I was getting to the success that I was looking for, the further away I was actually getting from my goal of, being a present mom and a good wife. I just got tired of my job getting the best of me and my family getting the leftovers. So I had to do something.
So when you decided to do something about it, what was the something?
Yeah. So passive income for me, it's a really amazing book that I'm sure you've never heard of. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
That's a good setup.
Yeah, exactly. So I read that book. I learned about the cash flow quadrant and I'm like, oh my God, like this is my way out, right? So rentals. I saw passive income. He talked about rentals. I'm like, that's how you do this thing. So yeah, between my husband and I, we pinched our pennies. We took loans from our 401ks and used that capital to buy our first quadplex. We bird out of that, got a fiveplex, bird out of that, did some other stuff, and eventually just ran out of capital. So we figured at that point, we're going to have to expand our repertoire just so we could raise capital quick enough to continue this train.
Yeah, because it's usually the scaling point where you burr, and then it's not so much that you run out of money, it's that you run out of lending, conventional lending, where they're like, oh, that's enough, Jantzen, that's enough. You just relax. And then you're like, well, I'm not going to relax. I'm going to go get more money and more financing somewhere else. So then tell us about the transition. What was different between the self-financing world and when you stepped into, I guess, other people's money?
Yeah, sure. So when we were thinking about how do we raise more capital, we weren't really thinking about using other people's money yet. We hadn't grown to that point. We weren't that confident. So we were like, okay, well, we have to flip or wholesale, right? That's how real estate investors make money, apparently. Unfortunately, at my RIA, we had a guy who came and talked about flipping vacant land. And I'm like, okay, well, that sounds terrible. But when he, pointed out, listen, you don't have any contractors, you don't have any tenants. It made a lot more sense. So we went into this thinking we're going to flip land, raise a bunch of cash, and go continue with the multifamily piece. But I don't know what's going on in your market. But before the call, we were chatting like it's getting rough out there. We were building up our capital, but we weren't finding deals where the numbers were actually making sense for us anymore. So fortunately, in the land space, getting land is a little bit easier than getting houses, but it's the disposition side that could be a little tricky. So in land, it's very, very common to offer owner financing on everything. We don't care if you know what a note is or not. Like, that's just how you do it. Unfortunately, because we had built up so many owner finance notes, I was able to retire just off of the interest income. That's how I got out.
Yeah, the main thing about land, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, is it's not super financeable by the bank and stuff like that. So when you're able to, because it's going to be some contractor who maybe has the team to do it and probably has a line of credit to pull it off. But the bank's like, no, we're not buying a piece of dirt. You're gonna have to figure that out. And that's been like a big struggle for a lot of land flippers is the acquisition because it's almost a cash game. So you have to
Yeah.
bring cash, you have to buy cash, and then getting rid of it is a whole other thing. So when
Yeah.
you started doing the notes, at what point did you realize it was going to be challenging to get rid of these deals?
So that's really interesting that that's the perspective. So let me take a step back. And the way that we do land, we're not land bankers, right? So we don't buy land and hope that it appreciates one day. We are
Mhm.
flippers. So we're buying that land just like housing people do. We make money when we buy. So we're buying, 30 to 40% of market value. So the idea is that when we turn around and sell that property and we're collecting 20% down payment, the perfect scenario is that the down payment is enough to cash out the buyer and we're just financing our profits. And in those situations where that's not possible, maybe we've paid 40, 45% of the land just to get the deal done.
Mhm.
Maybe the down payment only covers half of what the land is worth. That's fine. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to create a note. Let me use real numbers because it's going to get a little muddy here real quick. So hang on with me.
Okay.
All right, so let's say I have a piece of property, it's worth $100,000. I get that property under contract for $40,000, right?
Mhm.
When I turn around to sell it to someone for the 100K, they're only going to give me 20% or $20,000 down, which means now I'm
Mhm.
in the whole 20 grand.
Mhm.
But that note that I created, that they gave me $20,000 down, so now I have a note for $80,000 that they're going to pay back over 5, 10 years, right?
Mhm.
Let's say it's a 10-year note that I've created. I can go out to my friends and family, to my and my group of other land flippers or note investors and say, hey, I've got a 10-year note out there. Either I can sell you the whole note and I can take my cash today, or I like to do is sell just $20,000 of that note, maybe like 25, maybe a little bit of cash extra. So that's just enough to pay off my seller. And maybe that means I have to give up, 2 or 3 or 4 years of cash flow. But at the end of that period, that's where my retirement kicks in. And
Mhm.
that's why it took us a little while to go ahead and retire because we were stacking those bad boys up.
Yeah, it's like the a partial note. You're selling a partial
Yes, exactly.
and then you're financing the difference, which is essentially not inflated, but market rate. So there's like the actual cash is out, and now it's just a paper note that is accruing over time, and then eventually has a buyout. So what do you do in the case of, let's say, a developer comes to you and puts the house together and sells it off? Then you're bought out of the note.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing that would happen with a house and a mortgage. If you
Hmm.
sell the house, just pay off the mortgage and move on.
Yeah,
And
clear out
trust me,
the
I'm
note.
never upset when they give me my money back early. I'll cry, but it's okay. They're happy tears.
Yeah, you can always go find another note and buy that thing. And
There it
so,
is.
curiosity's sake, do you ever vendor finance the 40K part of the note? Do you ever go
Uh,
zero down on the thing and get the original owner to finance you the 40 and then make a note for 100 and finance the whole thing without
Oh,
actually
you are
taking money?
sexy. I love it. I talk numbers to me. Okay, so I that's not typically my strategy. I've done this a couple of times. I've done the sandwich lease purchase option. So rather than try to wrap notes and do all of that, in my scenario, I took ownership of the property and they gave me a mortgage on that property. And then when I turned around and sold it, I kept ownership of the property. I just leased the property out until and I accrued rent credits. And then once they had paid the full term, then I went ahead and assigned the deed over. So I was in control of that property the entire time in those situations. Um, First of all, I want to make sure my seller is taken care of. So that was paramount for me. And then secondly, if anything ever goes sideways with the property, you can get in a little bit of trouble depending on the state that you're in. But here in Florida, those lease purchases, look, they work really well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So how did you get your background in writing and creating notes? Because that's not
Yeah.
really something that has been at the top of the Google search history in recent times. Only in the last, I don't know, 24 months has it
Yeah.
become a topic again.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's interesting you put in that time frame there. It's because rates are going absolutely bananas right now.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, from what we learned in flipping land, it's just because land is so non-bankable, it's just a part of what you do when you
Mm.
so
So it's already like part of the business model when you learned it.
it was. And I think what's really interesting is that there's so much more interest now in owner financing, again, because banks are just being hard on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember I had Eddie Speed on the show. I don't know if you
Oh,
know who that
yes.
is.
Oh, yeah.
And so he was talking right over my head because this was one of the first conversations. Because in Canada, we don't have that business. It's not a thing.
Oh,
So in the
interesting.
United States, that's like a whole business. And so we don't talk about it. We're not, it's just not part of the conversation. So when he's on the show, he's talking about how you can create cash flow out of notes of all sorts, houses,
Yeah.
apartments. You can create any sort of note and
Fleet
have,
of cars, trucks,
yeah,
or yeah, whatever.
any sort of weird thing that you want to finance. And um, certainly he said it's been 30 years since it made sense. And he's like, well, now here interest rates like the late 80s, and we're
Yeah,
doing the note business again. So
yeah.
um, how long did it take you to put that thing together? And when you mean retired, do you mean
Yeah.
it hit the bare minimum, or did you actually create a lifestyle out of it as well? Like, are you still
Beautiful,
active?
beautiful. Yeah. So I am so active because after 13 years of having this corporate brain, it doesn't stop. So I just found more things to pour myself into. My husband as well. So he's president of the PTA. I sit on the board there. We also are very active in our church. We spend a lot of time volunteering and giving back. And now I devote a lot of my time to grant writing. So I help nonprofits that I'm very passionate about, including my church, including my PTA, secure funding. I've always loved money, and why not? If that's the gift that I was given, why not use that to the greatest purpose?
Yeah, exactly. Right. If you know it and it's exciting, then you might as well do it. So
Yeah.
this is kind of going to be a double question because I think we kind of already answered it. But
Okay.
with everything you've done in real estate so far, what's the secret sauce? What comes easy to you that other people might find difficult to do?
Yeah, putting together deals, which to me, I didn't realize this is a genius, but apparently it is. And that's the part I absolutely love. So when other people say no or it can't be done, all I hear is, how can it be done? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
it starts all with communication, being empathetic to all of the parties involved. And I 100% believe in win-win-win solutions.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to do it. There's a way
Yeah.
to do it.
I've always found on the wholesaling side, that's my primary thing. That's like the thing that I like. That's hunting the deal and getting rid of the deal.
Yeah.
But it seems like the win-win-win in wholesaling is where everyone's a little bit disappointed. The seller's a little disappointed. The buyer's a little disappointed they didn't get to it first. I'm a little
Yeah.
disappointed that maybe the fee wasn't what I wanted to be. But
Yeah.
everyone's getting that satisfaction of, okay, I'm getting out of the deal. I'm getting paid for my time and I'm
Yeah.
getting a deal. And I've always found that that's the best deal in wholesaling is where everyone's slightly disappointed. So maybe it's different
Okay.
on the land side. Well, sellers want a highest price.
Exactly.
Wholesalers want an exorbitant fee against the amount of time we spent working on it. And the
Yeah.
person who's going to flip it or whatever, they want the lowest possible price. So
Of
when it's
course.
not exactly that, then at least the deal gets done, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Well, you know what? I think in that, and I do talk to a lot of wholesalers, trying to get them on this owner financing train because you guys are the ones who have that direct access with the homeowners and with those property owners, right? So when you say the property owner wants the highest price, you can give them the highest price
mhm,
terms. So they're going to be thrilled if you're able to do that for them.
yeah,
On
I've had a
Yeah, go
lot
ahead.
of more success since the rates went up,
Yes. Yes.
um, having that conversation. And a lot of vendors are open to it. They're like, we actually already bought the other house. We're moving into it. And
Yeah,
yeah, I'll hold this house for 3 years until the interest rate turns. And
yeah,
then we don't have to go through the whole thing of financing. We already have the financing in place.
exactly.
We can bring the money to repair the house, or in some cases, putting together a sandwich lease where I lease it from the owner. I get a tenant in there,
Yeah.
and then I turn the tenant into a tenant buyer. And
Yes.
in like 2 or 3 years, it all just goes away. And all I had to do was make sure that everyone is paying the bill. And
Yep.
so um, prior to the interest rate hike, I wasn't interested in that. I wanted clean deals, like offer to purchase, possession date, all that stuff,
I
clean
understand.
in, clean out. And then when it became trickier and stickier to move people in and out of houses, I was like, okay, well, let's get creative and
Yeah.
sort this out on terms instead of price. So where do you
And
want to take?
honestly,
Oh,
if
sorry, go
that,
ahead.
no, no, it's fine. I just love what you're saying here, because if you're what you're doing is working in this environment, I promise you it works in others, right? So even
Mm-hmm.
when interest rates are low, and if someone's already in their new house, what do they need the cash for? They're going to stick it in the
Mm-hmm.
bank and earn 2%? Like, why not hold it and earn 5, right? Or 7 or 8, like whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want to negotiate. And then this is what I would say to any wholesaler that is out here listening to this thinking, yeah, that my sellers are never going to go for this. You just said your seller's fine getting out in 3 years. Would your seller be fine getting out in 6 months? Because that's what I consider a seasoned note. As long as
Mm.
that buyer is paying for 6 months, 6 to 12 months is what most people say. But listen, I will take it on the closing table.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if your seller can just wait 6 short months, there's a whole industry of us who are
Yeah.
sitting here hungry for notes. We will buy
Yeah.
it from that seller in 6 months. So if you can negotiate that deal, how much better can your profits be if you know that we're here and we can help you out?
And that is interesting too, because in the note business, it's all about a seasoned note. They don't want that
Exactly.
brand new note. They want to see payment history of, you know, like you're saying, you're okay at 6, and there's probably risk adverse people who wait for a year note.
Yeah.
But that's it, because the thing that holds a lot of wholesalers back at the beginning of thinking about creating these notes is that they're like, well, I'm gonna have to wait years to get paid. And it's not
Yeah.
the case. You can get these notes qualifying for an entire industry, like you said, an entire industry that's just waiting for notes. And as soon as they come up, they're dispositioned into
Yep.
eager money partners, because it's so simple for the investors to participate in the note business. They're not actually,
Absolutely.
like, they could care less about the house.
Yeah.
They're interested in the note, the terms, the schedule. Whether they even know the address is almost is something that doesn't
It's
even
nice
matter.
to
It's like,
know.
yeah, but they're never
Please
going to
don't put
look
me in a
at
D
it.
class property, but for the most part, it's not the main thing. It's not the
Yeah,
main
I
thing.
mean, if the note's being seasoned, it's a seasoned note on a D class property. Not everyone's going to like that, but it's the payee,
There's some people who will.
the person paying that note is really the deal. So,
Yeah.
um, what's the future look like for your business over going forward in the next 12 months?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I am on a buying spree. I'm actually looking to fund about 6 million in deals this year. I'm really, really excited. I've got some fun partners that I'd like to get their cash to work as quickly as possible. So if the listeners who are listening here in the wholesaling world, if you're out there and you're seeing deals just evaporating in front of you, I am telling you, like, we're screaming from the rafters here, make owner financed notes. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Because we are out here and we are hungry. We are hungry for them. Yeah, and if you are sitting on the sideline and you're thinking, like, I'm not really sure, like, I'm interested in real estate, but I don't want to have to negotiate with sellers, and I don't want to be running through these houses, join us. Like, we are a big happy family. And one thing that I really love, that I'm really excited about with this business, is because of my corporate background, I'm very comfortable in the B2B space.
Mm-hmm.
And notes seems just like that. I mean, I worked for a bank for 13 years, and without even knowing it, I became one. So
Well, you
it's
never
very
see,
possible.
you never see, like, I've interviewed a handful of people. It's not a lot of people doing notes,
Mm.
but they're always sitting in an office. Like, I don't imagine that the people in the note space ever like leave their computer. Like that's what I imagine. I'm not a note space person, but I imagine that they're just like at a computer and something comes up and they're like, I'm gonna sell that to this person.
Hi.
Like it's like a stock, like a
Yes.
stockbroker almost, like
It's
moving
very similar.
financeable product, right?
Yeah. Actually, one
So
of the girls, I have real quick, I have
mhm.
a group that we get together and we talk about this stuff. And she's so funny. She's like, I love coming to these because you get my shopping habit. Rather than shopping for shoes, I shop for deals. I'm like, yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, and it is there. It's not even like there's no like flyers and door knocking and any of that stuff. It's just mortgage notes flying around. Oh, this one's no good. That one's no good. Oh, let's go through the notes of the day.
Yeah.
So when you're presenting these deals to possible investors, how do you go about doing that? Because it's a little different, I would imagine, than take a look at this house and take a look
Yeah.
at the cash flow.
Yeah. So the way I approach every client that I work with, I talk about the brats, right? So it's budget, rate of return, what kind of assets are you interested in, what time frame do you want to be invested, and are there any particular states? Particularly because notes are treated differently by different states. So I just want to make sure that I'm matching their brats criteria. So yeah, I speak with people. I'm like, what's your budget? And that's what's really nice about this. When I was in real estate, I assumed that to become a private lender, you needed to be a millionaire or at least have like $500,000.
Mm-hmm,
But there
mm-hmm.
are notes available for $5,000. I mean,
Yeah.
they can be tiny to get into this business. So you're looking for, what's the budget that works? And then the rate of return, and that's going to vary from person to person. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're thinking about this for yourself, I always think, what's your best alternative? If you're a flipper and your best alternative is to invest in a house and you can make 30% on your money, well, that's your floor for a note. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you discount the work that you're doing and the headaches, but that's your floor. For me, I was on the retirement track, so my option was the stock market. So my
Mm-hmm.
notes just have to outperform that. So for me, 12.9%, 15%, that's a nice range for me. For other people who are very, very safe, maybe the CD is their other
Mm-hmm.
option. So for
Mm-hmm.
them, 8% all day is going to get them excited. It just depends on the person.
Yeah, because then in the note space you can match it and it's all about the spread. So you can find the
Yep.
investment, sell them part of it, and then create cash flow on the note yourself. And I'm still getting the grips of it. It's a totally foreign concept, obviously in a foreign country. So,
So really quickly, I'm going to throw out a tiny little thing that I hope helps. I know we're short on time, but I get so
no, that's
excited about
okay.
this stuff. So you mentioned something really cool, and I love this idea of arbitraging the note. There's two things that you mentioned I want to touch on. First, this idea that note investors out there only want seasoned notes. That is the vast majority of investors. I get it. That's not
Mm-hmm.
me. I'm the girl that is totally happy to buy your note at the closing table. So you wholesalers can walk away with cash at closing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one. But because of that, there's going to be a discount involved, right? I am assuming some risk that this person
Mm-hmm.
never makes a payment, right? So I might buy that note at a 15 or 16% yield for me. In English, what that means is going back to my land example, you have $100,000, you got 20% down, and there's an $80,000 note. Even though that note is worth $80,000, I might only be able to offer you $70,000 for that. Now, in my land scenario where I've got like crazy margins, that's a drop in the pan. That's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
A little $10,000 discount. But if you're dealing with houses, the margins are a little bit different. There will be a discount, but trust me, you'll still make money. I don't make money unless you make money.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll do that. I'll buy it at $70,000. I'm the one who's going to take that risk, hold on to that note for 6 to 12 months, get it nice and seasoned, pull any of the reports. If you don't do background checks, if you don't pull credit scores, I'll do all that and get it nice and clean. So then I can turn around and sell it on the market for that value. So not only have I collected payments and interest for 12 months, I then get to turn my $70,000 note into an $80,000 profit. And all I
Mm-hmm.
really have to do is click a couple of buttons.
And take the risk. They might never pay.
and take the risk that they might never pay. But if they never pay, I end up with a house. Or
Yeah, you
resilient.
take the note, you take the property.
Yeah, exactly.
So we could go on pretty much indefinitely about notes. But ultimately, I think it'd be easier if people would reach out to you directly, find out more, connect with you. So what should they do? How do they do that?
Yeah, just go to flippingwithoutrehab.com and you can find out more about me. And for all of your listeners who are interested, if they want to just dip their toe into the note space, if you go to flippingwithoutrehab.com/gift, you can go ahead and download my checklist that I look at for any note that comes through. You can see exactly what I'm looking at. Just rip it, copy it, and yeah, happy note hunting.
There you go. So yeah, I really appreciate you stopping by and opening people's eyes to the note business once again. You, Eddie, we just had Larry on a little bit earlier tonight. And a couple of other people that are part of the Eddie Speed Note School stuff have been on the show, and fascinating. I'm still not 100% sure how it works, what it does.
We're going to get you there, Bryce. Kicking or screaming, you're coming over.
Well, we'll figure it out. I'll go and get the free gift, and so should everybody else listening back at home. So until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.